I'm Howard Bragman. Thanks for joining us on Gwissues. Today we're going to talk about coming out in the National Football League. We've all of us on the panel have seen an episode of the show Necessary Roughness on USA Network that deals with a quarterback coming out. I want to start with Wade Davis, a former NFL player who is out. Wade, are we close to this really happening, or are we just wishing in the gay community?
I think it depends on what you label as close. I think we're 2 to 4 years off. So I think that's pretty close.
Why do you think we're 2 to 4 years off?
I just still believe that any gay player that decides to come out needs more support throughout the NFL. I think that you have, a good 5 to 10 players who are being advocates, but I still think that there needs to be more guys who are speaking up and out about the fact that they're open to having a gay teammate and that they're against homophobia.
Kevin Arnovitz from ESPN, what are your thoughts? You deal in the mainstream sports world. Is this something you think we're close to?
I think the closeted gay ball player needs more assurance from his league, from his team, from his organization, that there will be a supportive community once he does make that announcement. And right now, what I hear from, say, NBA players, when I say, is the sport ready? There's still a fear that job security would be at risk, that a general manager might not sign a player who is openly gay, not because they're homophobic, because, well, it's an unknown entity. And I think those closeted players want that reassurance. They just don't believe, they're not sold on the idea yet that there's a tolerant community waiting for them on the other side.
Jim Buzinksi from Outsports, when I've worked with athletes who have come out in the past, their former teammates said, well, they weren't telling us the truth, and that would be bad for teammates, for team coherence. You think that's true, or is that just an argument that really is about homophobia?
I think it's mostly an argument still about homophobia. And back to Wade's point, I would have thought 10 years ago when I first started doing Outsports that we would have had that openly gay player now. So I'm really not sure when it's going to happen, and it may happen sort of in a surprising way that we're not expecting. We saw a case the other day where a former 49er was charged with assault of his ex-boyfriend. Well, if that was a current 49er or a current NFL player, we'd have our first out active player, but it wouldn't be happening in a way that I think any of us would want it to happen in.
I've always believed that because of this world we live in that's shockingly transparent, that something's going to happen exactly like it did to that former 49 player. And it's not going to be somebody who comes home, says to their partner, I want to live my truth, and then has a press conference the next day. I think it's going to be quite different from that. Will that matter, guys? Anybody can step in here. Will that matter how they come out?
I think so. The thing that terrifies me is some sordid scandal rather than what we saw on Necessary Roughness, let's say, which is a smart, intelligent, coordinated campaign. This isn't just an announcement. It's a campaign. And the response is very much going to be contingent on how well executed that campaign is, how well orchestrated it is. Something I thought the show presented well. If it's done surreptitiously or it's done through the tabloids, that really scares me.
Wade, tell me about the characters this first out NFL player is going to need. Tell me about the human qualities we're going to need to see in this person.
I think that he's just going to need just that, to be human. I think he's going to need to be honest about some of the issues that he's faced. I think he's also going to, how do I say this, need to be someone that understands the impact that he can have.
I think the person needs to be very secure also, probably secure in his position on the team. If he's valuable as a player, he's less likely to be cut for some reason. And just secure in who he is. And like Wade says, if you're immature and you're not ready, which a lot of athletes unfortunately are kind of immature when it comes to a lot of just real life things, that person is going to just go through a firestorm that he probably is not going to be able to handle.
Let me ask you, all three of you deal in the sports world, have a lot of friends who are playing professional sports. Is that player already out there and we just don't know about it, guys?
Yes.
Yeah?
For instance, like I don't know Kwame Harris well, but there were guys on that team who understood who Kwame was. Kwame was never an out player, but even while Kwame was at Stanford, like people at the university knew Kwame, and dated men, and no one said anything. I think that we're in a place in a society where people just allow you to just live your life, and there were probably teammates who may have known that Kwame was gay and just didn't care. I think that there exists kind of this code of understanding that as long as I don't make it a big deal, your teammates aren't going to make it a big deal, and therefore it's kind of a non-story. And I think that that's the way that most players would actually like it to be.
In the episode, Mark Cuban says the first out player is going to be the recipient of endorsements. He's going to be a big star. Are we believing that?
I think it's a very bifurcated existence. Mark's probably right, and I've talked to him about this in the sense that, in the world of Mitchell Gold endorsements and the gay community, I think that guy's going to do great, right? But one thing I continue to hear from executives,
he's going to have great furniture, in other words.
He's going to have great furniture. He's going to, his summer docket of gay pride Grand Marshal.
Don't you think Nike is going to rush on them to be ahead of the curve?
I'm an optimist like Mark is on this particular thing, but I still think that the impediment that I hear from a closeted player and from other executives is, and John Amici wrote about this in his book, is the job security thing. That unless he's a superstar, all things being equal, general managers, guys who assemble these rosters, they live in constant fear of being fired, they're risk averse, and given a choice between having that guy in the locker room when they need to sign an off-season, a member of the secondary, a third cornerback, say, or a guy with a very similar skill set who isn't openly gay, they might choose for the latter just because, hey, it's one less unknown quantity I have to introduce into a very delicate team chemistry. And that's
I would agree with Kevin. I would agree with Kevin. I think at the end of the day, it's a business. So I don't think that these GMs are necessarily homophobic, but they do have a business to run, and any distraction on a team is just that, a distraction. So they'll do all that they can to not have those distractions. So if it's a Tom Brady-esque type player, yes, he'll be there. But if it's someone who was like myself, who was a journeyman, why take a risk on a guy who could bring a firestorm into your team?
Yes, we all have the Tom Brady fantasy, okay? Let's admit it.
I don't.
You don't?
Yeah, me neither.
All right, well, I'll just speak for myself then. It's only because he went to Michigan, though. Final thoughts. I'd like some advice for each of you. For the first guy who's thinking about coming out. We'll start with you, Jim.
Just be ready to do it. Be ready to face constant media sort of barrage of questions. I think the questions will be friendly and positive, but you're going to be labeled by everybody as, the gay player. And if you're not ready to handle that, it's probably you're not the best person to come out.
Wade?
My best advice is to create a safety net around you of teammates who are going to be there for you, similar to on the episode on USA that he did have that marquee player that was in his corner. Any player that comes out is definitely gonna need a lot of allies within that locker room.
And finally, Kevin.
As Wade said, a support structure is important. Read Orlando Cruz's statement of coming out. Don't be defensive. Be brave, and really coordinate that campaign. If you're confident, the people on the other side will be confident. If you're apologetic, it's not going to go as well. So be declarative, be bold, have that support structure.
Let me just say, finally, I would urge this player to call me. Somebody who's done this before, somebody who knows how to take somebody out, me or somebody like me, so that you're prepared. Don't go into these treacherous waters alone. I want to thank you guys for joining us on Gwissues today. Jim Buzinksi from Outsports, Wade Davids, former NFL player, and Kevin Arnovitz from ESPN. Thanks, guys. Great discussion.